I think the number one skill that helped me be a strong founder, especially in the early days of building our business, is the ability to sell. And I think I'm blessed in the sense that that's just one of my intuitive superpowers. It's something my dad worked on with me as I was growing up. He was really focused on my ability to articulate. He thought that was really important. I ended up taking a business communications class at Michigan, but to be totally honest, I didn't find it very valuable. Half the time was spent doing kind of public speaking. Half the time was spent literally like digital communication, like how to write an email. And I found that to be tough as in like not helpful. But yeah, I mean, sales, I would say, is that if you are trying to elevate yourself as a professional in any way, not just as an entrepreneur, just in your career, you find yourself selling yourself far more times than you realize. So like just even talking about a business when we were starting Morning Brew, we're talking about a startup that was a media company. Media companies are generally not venture backable, so you can't raise from institutions. We had a newsletter. That's all we had. We had 30,000 subscribers at the time. We weren't making any money, but we had to raise money in order to possibly get to a place of making money. And so selling investors on why a 21-year-old and a 19-year-old who have a media company, where media companies are generally not profitable businesses and we weren't making money yet. And by the way, it's not really a media company, it's a newsletter. We had to sell them on why they should put their hard-earned money in our business. We had to sell our initial employees on why they should leave their steady jobs to join a business that's making $0. And we had to sell advertisers, because that was the first way we made money as a business. We had to sell advertisers like Discover Card, large financial institutions, on why they should even bother wasting their time on a company that reaches 30,000 people versus allocating that time to thinking about, say, a television commercial that reaches millions of people. And so I'd say that is the number one meta skill. I'd actually argue it's a meta skill even like in personal life, not just professional life.
I've heard a lot of people say that you know the skill of selling is kind of one of the most useful skills you can have. But I've always kind of wondered, and I never quite followed this thought of like, what does that actually mean? Like, I wouldn't say I'm good at selling, but I guess I have sold stuff in the past, and I just don't really think of selling as like a thing.
You sell yourself on YouTube every time you post a video. And this is actually an interesting thing and I've thought a lot about this, is what's the difference between sales or selling and storytelling? And my view is just, if something comes off as selling, it's just shitty storytelling. And so my view is like, why do people watch your videos for a long time? Why did you just hit 3 million subscribers on YouTube when there's an abundance of content? Because you're not the first person to talk about topics related to productivity, to bettering yourself, right? You have found a way to storytell in a way that captivates people and keeps them engaged. So you are innately good at storytelling. I think it is quite natural and intuitive to you. It doesn't feel like work to script and then deliver that in front of a camera. You couldn't be where you are today without being exceptional at storytelling.
How do people get better at this?
It's a great question. My answer would be, it's a combination of practice, of shadowing and feedback, and of understanding the fundamentals of what it means to storytell well. So going in reverse order, I think that there are tried and true, there's the science to it. There's like tried and true formulas for what is a captivating story for people. And so like, for example, I'm reading the book Creativity Inc. right now, which is the story of Pixar. Like there are story arcs, which is like, there is a hero. The hero is on a journey. The hero on the journey experiences a challenge. In experiencing the challenge, they go through adversity, they overcome the challenge, and they reach their goal. Like, that is one story arc. I think there are a number of formulas this way. So at base level, I think studying the best storytellers of all time and studying the formulas that they use to tell stories is the first step. The second step is what I would say is the combination of practice and shadowing. And so the example I'll use for you is, in the early days of Morning Brew, when we had to pitch advertisers on advertising in our newsletter, I had never sold in a professional setting anything before, but I had to do it. There was no option. We had to make money. And so I, got reps pitching probably in our first year, 250 advertisers on 30-minute calls about who Morning Brew was, what we stood for, and why spending your money with us was worth your time and your money based on what your goals were. And the first pitch I did, probably the second pitch, probably the 20th pitch I did was really bad. But every time I would take 5 to 10 minutes after a pitch and I'd have a reflection period where I would write down what are the things that I think I did well and what is one thing I would change for the next pitch I do. And I would record every pitch I did as well. So then thinking about shadowing and feedback, right? I was delivering feedback for myself, but a big thing that I did with our junior salespeople when they joined Morning Brew was when they would do a pitch in the early days, I would join them on those calls so that first of all, like I would do the sales pitch, they would listen to me, so they would sponge up that information. We would do that for a few weeks, and then gradually I would hand off the reins to them where they would start doing the pitch. We would record it. We would listen back to it together after, which by the way, for anyone who hasn't listened to their voice before and hasn't listened to themselves do a sales pitch, it is going to be excruciating for you to do the first time, but it is so valuable. I would give them feedback and then they would use that feedback the next time. And, you look at a company like Gong. Gong is a multi-billion-dollar sales software company. There's a reason it's such a valuable business. So what Gong basically allows you to do is it allows sales orgs to record every sales call they have, and then in a database holds all of the sales calls organized by who the seller was, the type of client that it was, and it also will do things as sophisticated as say, what percentage of the time on the call were you talking versus what percentage of the time was the person talking, and it will categorize what were you talking about, almost like on YouTube, how you can kind of set the chapters of an episode. It does that automatically in your sales call. And so then any seller can go onto Gong and study what are quote unquote the best calls that have led to the conversations that convert their clients. At the end of the day, there is this art and science to understanding what works for you to storytell in a way that leverages your strengths, but also understanding the science of what works well and what are kind of like the natural story arcs that people over the course of time are always attracted to.
Yeah, so learning to sell. Let's talk about sales skills because this goes into specific knowledge. Sales skills are a form of specific knowledge. Really good salespeople, I think you can be trained. So it's not to say you can't learn it, but really there's such a thing as a natural in sales, and you run into them all the time in the industry that I'm in. And when you meet someone who is a natural at sales, you just know that they're amazing and they're really good at what they do. That is a form of specific knowledge. Now, obviously, they learned that somewhere, but they didn't learn that in a classroom setting. They learned that probably in their childhood, in a schoolyard. They learned it negotiating with their parents. Maybe some of it is a genetic component in their DNA. And you can improve it. You can read Robert Cialdini. You can go to a sales training seminar. You can do door-to-door sales, which is brutal, but will train you very quickly. So you can definitely improve your sales skills, but a lot of sales is this specific knowledge that you learn just by doing, especially at a very early age.